And welcome. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our August quarterly system update. My name is Courtney Penn, and I am the director of the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning, and very excited to be with you all today to share some information with you about all things happening in and through early care and education in our state. So here on this slide, you'll see the agenda that we'll be discussing today. So we'll have some general updates and reminders about the work happening through the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning, also known as OECOSL. Dr. Kelly Cervisi is here from the Indiana Department of Education, the Office of Kindergarten Readiness, to talk about iSprout. Also, we'll talk about the implementation of some new legislative priorities, some regulatory updates, and then have opportunity a few times in this session today for some questions and answers. I want to start off our discussion today by talking about our 2025-27 CCDF state plan. So just a little context here, our CCDF state plan, every state has to submit this plan as part of our work with the Office of Child Care, our funder, who funds us to provide healthy and safe quality childcare environments for children and families. And so we have to submit a plan that is really like our application to the federal government that says this is how we plan to implement the required components of those CCDF rules and regulations. I share this with providers and partners all the time. We too have rules and regulations just like child care providers and everyone else that we have to adhere to and follow as well. So this is our application, and again, it tells the story of how we will do our process. We had that out for public comment earlier this summer and made some adjustments, and then we also have the plan posted live throughout the year so that everybody has access to it. And I do always like to share as well that this is a living document, even though we're going through the cadence now of where we have submitted it to the Office of Child Care for review, and we are doing back and forth feedback loops, if you will, for anything that may need further clarity or information on, and that the plan will go into effect October 1, but also knowing that it is not a stale document that lives and once it's final, it's final. Anytime we implement any sort of change or implement any new updates to our laws, rules, policies, practices, etc., we then submit an amendment to the Office of Child Care. That amendment then gets approved and then is embedded into that latest version of the state plan. So I'd just like to share that, again, even though that's submitted and is something that we're working on, it does not mean that it stops and starts on October 1. Anything that time things change, we do go back in and make those changes. And again, that latest version is then uploaded to our FSSA OECOSL webpage for everybody's consumption. Having said that, I also want to share that, if we could go back, sorry. If we could, I also want to share that the last year, literally almost a year ago to the date, I think, we shared that we had transitional true cost of care rate. So this is an alternative rate methodology that again was approved by our funder, the Office of Child Care, to implement true cost of care rates versus market rates to be able to reimburse for CCDF for child care providers. We initially thought and planned to have those rates available to be rolled out with our new state plan. Because we still want to continue to build equity and consistency within our programming, we decided to extend our data collection for those reimbursement rates. And so the new rates are not currently embedded in our state plan yet, but we do have our plan within the plan of what we're doing, which is that, again, continued and extending that data collection period, doing very targeted office hours and leveraging our partners to work with childcare providers so that we can ensure that when we do have those final rates that roll out, that they are the rates that we have gotten through the right pieces of data, that the data was collected properly, and that we have a budget that has been approved by state budget to ensure that we are in alignment with what we are able to do and for next steps. And so I do want to call that in specifically because I know it was part of our state plan discussion last year when we first started talking about the rates. And again, just a reminder that as those things change, we will update our state plan, which is common practice for states to do. And so again, wanted to update with that. The next thing I want to talk about is pay by enrollment, which has been a huge undertaking. So shout out to the whole OECOSL team who has been boots on the ground, hands-on, tired, working, and more working to get this off the ground and help this project come to life. Again, very exciting, having been in the field for over 24 years, to be able to see us come to a place where we come away and have a brand new process of paying by enrollment versus attendance, and then also being able to really think about how we can help childcare providers streamline their efforts and their practices and help reduce some of the burden from families and providers in this way. So as you can see here on this slide, pay by enrollment went into effect a little over a month ago, so July 15th of this year. And we just recently had our first, providers just recently saw their first payment go through under this new structure. And so again, just really thinking about this ability to change not only the way that they're tracking attendance, but also assumes that all children are present full-time unless the provider marks them absent. So for more information about pay by enrollment, you can go to our in.gov vouchers website to learn about more information, FAQs, resources, etc., about this particular topic. And those are some really great resources, and the team has been very thoughtful about hearing from the field and updating documents and practices as we have gotten questions and other feedback. I want to share a few reminders, which is office hours are being held every week from now through the end of September. And I would really encourage you to attend and leverage those opportunities. Again, great subject matter expertise and great folks who are passionate about this work and passionate about seeing providers be successful in this space, are ready, willing, and able to support this work from OECOSL, along with our partners, our TA vendor, Spark Learning Lab, to be of assistance, to really help answer questions and be of assistance. Another reminder is if you still have your POS machine or your point of service machine, please use approved electronic disposal or recycling site to get rid of those machines. Again, so for those who don't know, those are the machines where parents previously used a card to swipe, where now they no longer have to do that. And so we do want to make sure that we are getting rid of those machines at approved sites and making sure that we're recycling them, and that information is here as well. And just another reminder is also that attendance must be submitted every 2 years in the provider portal. And if you miss one submission, you will still get paid as a childcare provider, but then all other future payments will be held until that submission has been completed. The provider should submit payment, and the order should be from oldest to newest. And again, as I shared earlier, we have rules and regulations and practices that we must adhere to as the Office of Early Childhood and Out School Learning, FSSA, the holistic agency, as we are funded through the Office of Child Care. And one of those things is having strong auditing and monitoring processes. And so we have to make sure that we're paying out what is honorable and correct on our end. And so that is why these processes are in place. Along those lines, thinking about our CCMS or Child Care Management System information. So we, OECOSL, you may have heard, if you attended previous town halls, you would have heard me share that we did put out to bid this opportunity, and the 3 vendors that you see here on the screen won those bids through our procurement process and are our preferred CCMS vendors, who we are paying for 2 years of their services with a blending of CCDF quality, some stimulus dollars, and also some of our PDG innovative dollars as well. The goal here was to really think about how can we start preparing child care providers, even when knowing that paid by enrollment was coming down the pipe. How can we prepare providers to really be able to drive their attendance data in a way and start building that muscle about entering data electronically, knowing that we were partnering with these 3 vendors with an API connection that would allow for direct input into our system. Again, those providers using the CCMS still must confirm and submit attendance every 2 weeks through the portal, but it's just a much easier and more streamlined process leveraging those particular programs. It's really exciting to me to share this information, which is that with this initiative, we have been able to see over 1,700 providers sign up to implement using one of these three preferred vendors, and over almost 900 providers who've been able to utilize this who have never had a CCMS system before. One of the great things about this is that providers are going in there doing their attendance, and we again have the API that links in their attendance tracking into our portal, but also that this system does much more than that, that it also helps with their overarching bottom line of their programming. Attendance tracking, billing, classroom management, incident reports, that family engagement through those communications with families, really being able to utilize this tool to help holistically with their program. The goal is that over time that it does build in more streamlined work that hopefully will save the childcare provider time over a period of time, and again, streamline their efforts to being able to track where funding is, where funding and billing are coming in, and then also their records and again, communication with their family. So super excited about that, to see that there are folks who have never used one before who are being able to access it through this project. And then also like to tee up as well that even though we had to, because of the funding streams that we are leveraging and the budget set aside for this project, we did have to stop the acceptance of applications for this earlier this summer. But with the understanding that those who were not licensed prior to that ending, that providers still have within this 2-year timeframe the ability to get the state pricing that we negotiated with these three vendors for the next 2 years. So that's still a really exciting. I know it's not free like the others, but it's still exciting to have that reduced cost. And we have been able to see other vendors who were not even on this list of three also engage and say, we don't want to lose our who already had CCMS. We don't want to lose our clients. So they have also adhered to our negotiated pricing. And so that's been some additional great wins that have come out of this project. All right, I will be back to share some more information in just a little bit, but right now I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague, Dr. Kelly Cervisi, again, the director at the Office of Kindergarten Readiness, who is here to talk to us about the Indiana iSprout assessment expansion.
Thanks, Courtney. So again, thank you for having me today. And I am going to talk about iSprout, the Indiana Student Performance of Readiness and Observation of Understanding tool. And this has just been a wonderful collaboration with the Office of Early Childhood and Out-of-School Learning. So I am very excited to talk about that today. So today we're going to talk about what is iSprout. We're going to talk about administration and results, and then we're going to talk about some next steps. So there are a couple of things that we had to do before we got to our early learning assessment system. The first thing that we did here at the IDOE is defined kindergarten readiness, and then we had to take a look at the standards that we use. So last year we used the same review process as K-12 to take a look at the early learning, formerly foundations. We had rounds of review by experts in the field, and some of you might have participated in that, and so thank you if you did. Then we also had time for public comment. Then we took a look to make sure that those foundations were aligned with the expectations for kindergarten. And in 2023, the Indiana State Board of Education formally adopted them as the early learning standards. And now they will go through the same review process every 6 years as the K-12 academic standards. So once we had our definition of kindergarten readiness, and then we had the early learning standards, then we took a look at the assessment system. And so the Office of Kindergarten Readiness utilized a request for proposal process to find a vendor to design, administer a report on kindergarten readiness that is now available. The process included a review of oral and written proposals by representatives from the Office of Kindergarten Readiness, Assessment and Special Education, as well as OECOSL and First Steps. And our vendor has created an early learning assessment system that has 3 parts. The first part is iSprout Birth through 2. The second part is iSprout 3 through 5. And then the final part is the kindergarten readiness assessment, which is given the first 6 weeks of kindergarten. So you might ask, why do we want to measure skills in early learning? Well, according to the national academies, children entering school with well-developed social and cognitive skills are more likely to succeed in school and less likely to need intervention services later in life. Children entering school are most likely to succeed if they can enjoy learning, pay attention, manage feelings, accurately identify their emotions, relate to others in positive ways, work independently and cooperatively, and approach new learning enthusiastically. It's important to remember that the design of iSprout is based on the framework of developmentally appropriate practice established by NACCE. It also supports the Head Start performance standards for teaching and learning environment. In the position statement on early childhood curriculum, assessment, and program evaluation, NACCE highlights observing, documenting, and assessing each child's development and learning as essential processes for educators and programs to plan, implement, and evaluate the effectiveness of the experiences they provide to children. The statement also emphasizes that educators embed assessment-related activities in the curriculum and daily routines to facilitate authentic assessment and to make assessment an integral part of professional practice. The early learning assessment system is grounded in these principles. So the iSprout birth through 2 has 20 items on it. The iSprout for 3 through 5 has 28, and both of those are purely observation. So to help us understand iSprout, it's really important to know that it covers all 8 domains of our early learning standards: English language arts, math, science, social studies, creative arts, physical health and growth, approaches to play and learning, and student well-being. Currently, well, in the past, iSprout 3 through 5 was required for children ages 3 through 5 who received special education services through the public school system. It is still required for that, but we are very happy this year to be able to offer it to all children and all early care and education programs, 3 through 5. And today it opens up the opt-in for birth through 2. This is a completely free system that we will be offering, and the training for it is also free. Birth through 2 will open up in January of 25 to actually be used in your own settings. And it's important to remember that if you do give the KRI, that is still required for your program, but you may opt in and also give iSprout as well. So when thinking about administering iSprout, there are a few things to remember. The first thing is it's administered year-round. iSprout is completed as an entry, interim, or exit assessment. The entry assessment is completed within the first 6 weeks of a child entering an early learning program, or the first 6 weeks of a child getting their first IEP. The interim assessment is completely up to the program, and it can be given at any time throughout the year. You may choose to do it at a child's birthday, when they leave a classroom setting and go on to the next age level. And then the exit assessment occurs within 6 weeks upon leaving a program. And what's really nice is the platform the iSprout is housed in, the child can be assigned to multiple educators. So if I do Johnny's entrance assessment and he moves on to Courtney's for the next class, I can tag Courtney on that, and then she can see the results that I have put in for Johnny. It can go from educator to educator within one program, or if another program is also using the iSprout, they can see the results that have previously been entered. So you might ask, how long does it take to give the iSprout? And really, that's going to depend on the educator. And I know that's not a really good answer, but you really want to give the child the opportunity to show all of the strengths and all of the areas of need. So there is a nice long window that's open for you to take multiple observations, for you to get feedback from other educators that work with the child, and then to put your information in the system. You can also do your observations multiple times during the day. You can do during whole group, small group, one-to-one, free play. It's really nice because anyone who goes through the training is employed by the program and knows the child can work together to gather that data and to input that data into the system. So I mentioned traditionally that iSprout was for children ages 3 through 5 with those special education needs. In reality, iSprout can be given to any child, birth through age 5, regardless of special education need. There are some adaptations that are available if a child does need some additional supports in answering or being observed, but it truly does allow you to capture the wide range of skills that a child might show. So it is very much available to all children. And this is just kind of a reminder that if you do have the supports available for the iSprout, for example, if a child needs, a communication device or needs some pictures to help communicate for the iSprout, those supports do need to be available to the child every day in everything that he does. So iSprout results. We'll look at the continuums in just a few minutes, but it's important to remember that the iSprout provides educators and families with information about their child's progress in all 8 early learning domains. The information identifies strengths, uncovers gaps, and supports instructional plans to prepare children for kindergarten. And this can also be used to inform future lesson planning for individual students, small groups, and the whole class. It can also be used for needed additional services and to write IEP goals. Having this actionable data will facilitate discussions between educators and families about how children can grow at home. iSprout focuses on the learning domains that many assessments overlook, but are proven to have a high impact on children's experiences and achievements. iSprout also provides assessment results via individualized student reports, and we'll talk about those in just a little bit. Each individual student report includes performance indicators as well as tips for the families. So as I mentioned earlier, iSprout has 28 items that it looks for. Those are called SKBs, skills, knowledge, and behaviors. And these SKBs are directly aligned to our early learning standards. And this is just an example of one right here. This is math, and it goes along with standard 3.1, demonstrates understanding and classifying. And so when I look at this, I see that there is a wide range of skills that a child might be able to show. So if I decide that I'm going to assess this during my small group time, I might have the children seated in front of me with a variety of shape manipulatives, and I might give each child a handful. And the first thing I might say is, please sort these by shape. So that some children are going to be able to sort the squares in a pile, the circles in a pile, and the triangles in a pile. And I'm going to be watching that and maybe taking some notes or some pictures. Then I might say, take your squares and sort the big squares into a pile and the little squares into a pile. Again, I'm going to watch, take notes, take some pictures, and I might even push it and say, okay, put your green squares in a pile, your big blue squares in a pile. So I could have assessed just in that very short amount of time if the child can sort by 1, 2, or 3 different attributes. And then I can look along this continuum and see where they are. So the continuum is really nice because it allows me to assess each age level with those expectations and then know where I want them to go for kindergarten. What's really nice is I can also do this during free play time, which, as we know, that's the prime time for really seeing what a kid knows. So as they're cleaning up the dramatic play area and I'm watching the kids, kind of put the kitchen stuff away, I can see, are they putting the plates on a shelf, the cups on a shelf, and the food on a shelf? That could be one attribute. Then I could look at the food and say, are vegetables in a pile? Is fruit in a pile? And then with the fruit, is the red fruit together, the yellow fruit together? So, all of that rich information just by watching the child, 2 very easy ways to assess the standards using iSprout. So once I have that information, I'm going to go to the online platform where I put in my iSprout data. I'm going to go through my notes. I might look at my pictures, And then I'm going to look along this continuum here. And I'm going to be able to see that, during my small group time, Sarah was able to short those shapes in 3 different ways. And so I'm going to look along my continuum here. Levels A through D are those early developmental standards, below 3 years old. And we know that children all develop at different rates. So even though Sarah, might be 4, it's okay if I have to mark her down at a level, A through D. A 1-year-old is approximately 3 years old. Levels 2 and 3 are progressing towards kindergarten entry. 4 is the approximate entry at kindergarten, and then 5 is the approximate end of kindergarten. So depending on the ages of the kids in my class and their abilities, my ratings might be all over the map because they develop different skills at different times, and that truly is okay. It's important to focus on where the individual child is at that moment with a particular skill and help them grow from there. Because the next time I take a look at these standards and I'm in iSprout marking it, I could mark that they started at a level 1 and now they might be at a 3 or a 4. So it really does truly allow me to see their progress over time. It's also important to keep in mind that a child's rating is not a reflection of the educator's skill. It is truly just a measure of where that child is, where their strengths are, and areas where we can help them grow. The next 2 slides are just screenshots of those SKBs, those 28 items that we look for on the iSprout. And you can see how many of them align with the particular early learning standard that is in the far right-hand column. So there's the physical health and growth, the science, and the creative arts and approaches to play and learning. What's really nice about iSprout is the data that's available. So once I sit down with my pictures, my notes, and I put it all into the system, once I hit submit, all of that data is available to me immediately. And as an educator, I can see each individual child's data, or I can see the overall data for my classroom. As an administrator, I could also look at it by classroom or program-wide. This is just an example of a chart that you might see. The blue would show me where students are at the beginning of the iSprout, and then the orange would be where their exit is, their assessment. And so I really can compare the two and see how the children in my class have changed over time. One thing that I mentioned earlier was that individual student report. And again, these are also available for each child as soon as you click submit. This is a wonderful, wonderful tool for discussion with families because it's about 5 or 6 pages long, and it will walk you through the different areas of the iSprout. It will show where they were at the beginning, where they are in the middle if you choose to do those, and where they are at the exit. And it does allow the parents to see, the parents or the guardians, how the child has changed over time. And it also contains a lot of tips on things that they can do at home if they want to kind of continue that learning and how you really truly promote them being a partner in the child's progress. And the individual student reports are going to be available, I believe, in 5 or 6 different languages. So that can help you meet even more needs for your families. So kind of what's coming up and what's happening actually right now. I should have mentioned earlier, and my apologies if I did not, the iSprout and the training is available free of charge. And we are currently working with Spark. They will provide the training for all educators on how to implement the iSprout, and that training will be available soon. So there's going to be some links that go into the chat right now. There's going to be an opt-in link if you would like to utilize the early learning assessment system on your birth through 2. Although you can opt in now, please remember that the actual assessment will not be available till January. So this will allow us plenty of time to get the training in. There's also a link for 3 through 5, if you would like to opt in for that. And again, please remember that If you choose to opt in for this ICE route, wonderful. You still do need to give the KRI. And there's a third link for an educator committee. So we need some educators with that really birth through 2, birth through 5 expertise to take a look at the ICE route with us and all of the items that are on the assessment, just to give it a good look and make sure it's truly capturing what we hope our early learners are doing and what they're working on. So unless there have been any questions in the Q&A, the final link that they're going to put into the chat right now is my email address. So if you happen to think of anything as you're going along today, please feel free to utilize that. My email address will be in there, and on the screen you can see the K readiness. That's just the generic email address. Either one will come to me, so please feel free. And thank you so much for your time today, Courtney. Thanks for sharing the time, and I appreciate your partnership.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. Ditto, right back at you. Great job. Thank you for the information you shared. I will pause to see if there's anything that anybody has added to the Q&A section that hasn't already been addressed for either myself or Kelly, our slides that we've covered thus far.
Yep, Courtney, looking at these, it looks like most of them have been answered already. The ones that are in the queue currently have people typing along on them. I'm reviewing. Looks like a couple more popped in while I was chatting there.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I will let the real
looks
subject
like we're
matter
good.
experts, the folks in the moderators, go and continue to do their thing. So thank you, moderators, for that. And we can go ahead and move into our next piece here, which is the implementation of new legislative priorities. So we'll talk a little bit about, we know that there were many plentiful legislative priorities for early care and education this year, which was tremendously and historical and exciting. But specifically today, we will be talking about the expanded eligibility for CCDF and On My Way pre-K employees, and also the streamlining options for K through 12 schools to participate in On My Way pre-K. So first, we will talk a little bit about the expanded CCDF and On My Way pre-K eligibility for childcare workers. So again, this was a very impactful component that came out of session with making a priority group, if you will, for those who work in the early care and education space, allowing for 85% above state median income level, or what you may hear some of us refer to as SMI, from the 150, really, I'm just throwing numbers around, from the 150% federal poverty level, or FPL, as we call it as well. So again, the goal there was to increase the ability for folks to be able to access that resource through this priority group. This did go into effect July 1 for this ability to be able to happen, but because of all of the moving parts that are a part of this process, which include the training of staff, getting resources together, creating the actual application that will be used for this process, ensuring that even though we're creating this eligibility, this priority group, we still have to make sure that we're adhering to our federal funders, because we are talking CCDF and other funding. We have to ensure that we are tracking with our requirements, because it still has to go through an eligibility process, and just thinking of ways to ensure that we have checked all the boxes to make sure that we are doing this in a way that covers us from an auditing aspect and all the things. And so that has taken a breath of time. And so that is why we are now sharing here today, hot off the press, that the goal, our goal is to have this process available for folks to engage, to open up by September 30th of this year. To apply, eligible child care employees must be referred by their program administrator at the site where they are working using the iLead system. So I'll talk a little bit more about the referral process. So those interested child care workers must first have that conversation with their supervisor, again, the program administrator that has set up their account for them within the iLead system, in order to be able to make that referral for them. For this process, once that referral is complete, the child care worker will then receive an email prompting them to complete an application. So then again, those steps have to happen in that order, so that we can ensure that the child care worker is in fact currently working for a a licensed and or regulated program still in good standing with the state in order to access these fundings. And then again, they will reach out and collect other related documentation, because again, this is still, even though it's a priority group, we still have to check our eligibility boxes for our funder to ensure that we are doing things in the proper order and manner. Applications will be processed and vouchers will be issued on a first come, first served basis. What that truly means is that we had to figure out a pathway forward that ensured that there weren't certain pockets of the state that received the major bulk of this priority group funding, while other parts of it weren't able to access it at all. And so we've worked the plan here to ensure that it's as equitable as possible, which is to think about the seats for each respective region and to be able to support the needs of childcare workers that have want to be able to access this opportunity. Again, OECOSL recommends that providers make referrals and that employees complete their applications within the first 2 weeks of the application opening based upon what I've just shared. And so that to ensure that we can have a better idea too of those that interest, those who are engaging and who will be applying for this opportunity. Stay tuned. I would encourage you to stay tuned as we continue to share more information about not only this opportunity, but also all of the other legislative updates on our in.gov, FSSA, Early Care and Education Legislative Changes webpage that we've created, that we have been updating consistently and as much as possible as we've continued to have additional questions and other things have come up to leverage that platform, that space, to keep things as current as possible as we are continuing to develop new processes and resources. Again, you can learn more about this particular opportunity there as well, including eligibility requirements, policies, considerations, and how to refer employees online. We will continue to update and create more information as well on how to help ensure that employees are prepared for what the documents and other things that will be needed as far as being able to participate in this, including eligible employees must have completed a background check and a consent form and be up to date with their fingerprints on file to be referred. And also, as I mentioned earlier, they will be, after the referral is made, an email will be sent. So it's also very, very, very important that the employee's information is current and accurate in our system. Like the system, we only know what we can know based on the most accurate information, right? And so if their email is in there that is no longer active or the employee no longer has access to, that will be a barrier. So just thinking about all these things in the prep for that September 30th rollout, these are some things that could be happening in the background right now as folks are either onboarding new staff who they think would be interested in this opportunity or have current staff who they think would be interested in this opportunity, kind of checking some of these boxes even now as you prepare for that referral process to roll out. The next piece I want to talk through is the On My Way Pre-K eligibility update for public schools. So another great piece of legislation, another piece that came out of legislation under this same Senate Enrolled Act 2 was the opportunity for On My Way Pre-K eligibility for public schools. We specifically call out public schools because this legislation does not include any changes for private schools or their eligibility. So that's why you'll specifically hear me say public and charter schools specifically for this piece. Just want to call in the fact that this is really a way to support the needs of school systems and be able to further help with streamlining their efforts to participate in On My Way Pre-K. For previously leveraging their Pass the Quality, their high level 3 or 4 on Pass the Quality. In this instance, now leveraging their school accreditation for that level of quality to be able to give them a dotted line into being eligible to participate in On My Way Pre-K and receive a pre-kindergarten voucher. Again, so those public schools who choose to enroll in Pass the Quality can still work with their LLEP legally licensed exempt provider consultant in order to have that support. And then also the On My Way Pre-K application has been updated to support this new change in eligibility. Again, just wanted to call this in specifically. I would encourage any school that is considering this, who has engaged in this process before, again, to work with your LLEP, your legally licensed exempt provider consultant, and or an emerging provider specialist who is poised and ready to also help support navigate through these next steps. And then I'll share some more resources as far as contacts for questions as well that you can reach out to if you have further questions after our time today. And that is supposed to say, oh, sorry, can we jump back? Just for clarity's sake, it should be LLEPs will complete the PTQ form through their LLEP consultant. There isn't a new kind of consultant out there. I just want to make sure that that's clear. All right, next slide, please. All right, so wrapping up our time together, I want to just give some, I say just when that's not the word I should use because it's a big breadth of work that's happened underneath this regulatory work. So I want to share some regulatory updates with you. I want to start off by talking about how earlier, gosh, even before this year, but yes, earlier this year, I want to go just a little further back and add some additional context here. Is a little over 2 years ago, we started off this regulatory reform work, was one of Governor Holcomb's agenda items, which was to reduce the regulatory burden from childcare providers and build more equity across the board for how programs are being regulated. And so we kicked off the licensing work group, which consisted of licensed regulated childcare providers in our state, to help us really drive and start thinking about where there are inequities and inconsistencies across the board. We built on that group submitted a recommendations listing that was shared with our Early Learning Advisory Council. And then the momentum we built off of that was able to help us drive some successes in our last year's 2023's legislative session for some quick wins out of those outcomes. Then fast forward into 2024, we now have commissioned a third-party evaluation to assess those even at an even more in-depth process, like digging into the weeds of the actual rules and regulations and where there's inconsistencies. It also included small group and focus group conversations with but with all providers, families, system partners, et cetera, to really get to the heart of the matter. And our team here at OECOSL has reviewed those recommendations and began planning for implementation. That includes a crosswalk of those recommendations and what next steps could be. Many changes, looking at what those changes may be, from policy changes to rule changes to what things can happen through law change in a legislative session. And so what we are doing now is considering is a phased in approach. Again, those things that can happen through our internal processes. And so you see that here, where you see that our current licensing process is undergoing business process reform through a third-party vendor called Change and Innovation Agency. And what they are really doing is locking arm in arms with the licensing team, not only just the leadership team, but also the licensing consultants that come out to programs every single day, and helping us holistically think about how we engage with humans, how we build consistency, how we increase the bandwidth of our humans without increasing the actual number of humans, which means how do you figure out processes that take some of the day-to-day things that hinder consultants from being able to get back with providers in a timely manner because they're bogged down doing things that maybe the system could do or things that may be unnecessary. So those are the conversations that are happening right now, and those processes are being formed and built, roadmap literally being built today as we speak to further drive our internal processes of how we connect and how we support the field directly, boots on the ground out of this office. And then last but certainly not least, looking at changes resulting from this work are expected to significantly decrease the regulatory burden, but some of them will take some time. Again, there are quick wins. There'll be wins that take a little bit of time, and there'll be wins that take a lot of bit of time. And I know that's not great English, but I'm kind of just being silly here on this Monday afternoon. But really, all jokes aside, I just really want to call in the fact that we are really working hard, and shout out to the team that's working hard to really drive these pieces and really help give us a really great pathway. And I do also want to call in the fact that we don't want to do this in a silo. We encourage you all to participate. So whether it's the Early Learning Advisory Council, what we effectively call ELAC, whether it's the Center's Ministry Home, advisory committees that are funneled through and out of OECOSL, whether it's working with Spark through their RAC group, so their advisory councils, whether it's sending an email to our provider inquiry inbox if you've got feedback or questions. We really don't want to do this alone, and we want to do this in partnership. And I will want to be very clear that when we start the rulemaking process for these changes, there will be opportunity for public comment as the rule process is happening. So again, this is not going to be happening to providers, this will be happening along with providers. And so I'm really, having been a childcare provider for many years, it is really exciting to even be at the table having these conversations. So excited to share more information as more to come, but just again, wanted to call in this great work that's happening right now to continue to drive us forth towards that regulatory overhaul in our state. All right, pausing again for any questions that anybody has that haven't already possibly been able to be addressed in the Q&A feature.
Courtney, I'm pausing right now to see if any new ones roll in, but moderators have been doing a great job of getting those answers. We'd have 29 answered questions, so any folks that have additional questions, yours might be answered there. We've seen some really good ones, so nothing open available right now, Courtney.
All right, thank you, Weston. On that note, I will then follow into our, I kind of teased this up a little bit already, but additional ways to stay engaged. So again, we have our pay by enrollment questions answered in our upcoming office hours. You can register online through our training and technical assistance vendor, Spark Learning Lab, through their webpage at indianaspark.com, pay by enrollment for more information. And again, the opportunity to register and sign up for support through that. Also, stay tuned into incoming. The Department of Education also has office hours to learn more about the iSprout. I believe we already shared that link in the chat, but if not, also here's the Indiana Learning Lab for dates and times and more information about the iSprout rollout. And then also, as again, I did share this earlier about the ability to leverage our childcare legislative updates webpage. Again, this is not a page that just stays stale. It's something that we continue to update as we get more questions that come into our office as the team hears things from while they're out with providers and other opportunities. We are doing our due diligence to make sure we are updating the FAQs and other information and resources on that page as quickly and as often as possible. And then last but certainly not least, calling in the OECOSL provider inquiry email so OECOSL provider inquiry at fssa.in.gov is a great way to get questions answered and supported. And that inbox is supported by multiple humans here at the Office of Early Childhood and out of school learning with respective different subject matter expertise as well to be responsive to your question. So I encourage you to leverage that, even if your question is a comment about any feedback or thoughts about today, or that you want to make sure that we're thinking about through the regulatory reform or any other strategies that we have shared, that I've shared today. And so again, these are awesome ways to stay engaged. I also want to share our Monday Must Know, just like Kelly shared earlier today about the iSprout. I saw that email come through my inbox as well today about all the great things that are happening through that. And that is a great outlet that we share as well for upcoming events, ideas, information, opportunities through the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning. And I think that might be it. I think I've checked all my boxes here. So again, thank you all for spending some time with me and Kelly this afternoon. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your interaction. Sounds like there were some great things happening in the Q&A feature. Again, use your resources to get a hold of us and contact us as needed. We've got some really great web pages for you to download and get resources and tools as well. So hopefully you find those helpful to you also. So again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your Monday and a great rest of your week. And I look forward to seeing you soon.